More with Majd al-Wahidi from Gaza.
Tensions. Egyptian and Palestinian sources confirmed that a ceasefire was set to be declared between Israel and Hamas. The truce was mediated by Egyptian intelligence officials. Other sources said that Israel delivered a warning to Hamas to stop rocket fire from Gaza. Otherwise, a massive Israeli strike will hit the coastal enclave within 48 hours.
Israeli occupation has an interest in a quiet state. Now the situation in the West Bank is on the edge. Also, there are many protests in the lands of 1948. I think Israel wants to open new fronts and create new scenarios to justify its aggression and war crimes.
Escalations didn't stop. Israeli jets bombed 3 Hamas sites southern Gaza Strip late Friday after 14 rockets were fired from the besieged enclave into southern Israel. Earlier, a Palestinian was shot and critically injured by Israeli forces in the central Gaza Strip. Medical sources said he was shot in the chest and taken to a hospital.
Nothing justified just aggression on the Palestinians and committing grave violation to the international humanitarian law. The international community must act in order to end such grave violations and to protect the Palestinian civilians, mainly to end these illegal airstrikes and at the same time to reopen all the crossings, to let in all the needs for the Palestinians in order to get back their real life.
Observers say that neither Hamas or Israel are interested in deteriorating the current situations. However, the future of peace seems far away than ever. With the current political turmoil and violence, people in Gaza are still trapped between a crippling blockade and war attacks. Majd al-Wahidi, Kuwait TV, Gaza.
Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki is vowing to fight for a third term in office despite growing pressure for him to step down. Maliki has come under mounting pressure since ISIL militants rampaged through swaths of the country last month. Earlier on Friday, Iraqi government troops recaptured the village of Auja as part of an ongoing offensive that aims to retake Tikrit. The international community has urged Iraqi officials to form an inclusive government to counter the recent violence that has killed thousands and threatens to upend the government. A group of nurses caught up in fighting in Iraq have arrived in India today after briefly being held captive by suspected militants. More in the following report by Badriya Al-Saleh.
Freed Indian nurses abducted by suspected militants in Iraq arrived home in Kerala today. India's foreign ministry said the 46 nurses, all from Kerala, were stranded in a hospital in the ISIL militant-controlled city of Tikrit for weeks. It remains unclear whether the nurses had been held by the militant group or were just stranded in their territory, but today they were finally welcomed by family members at the airport after they were brought home on a special Air India flight. In addition to the nurses, the Indian Foreign Ministry says 40 construction workers are still in captivity. About 10,000 Indians work in Iraq, mostly in areas unaffected by the fighting, but scores of them are returning home since ISIL began its offensive. The Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant, better known as ISIL, and other militant groups have seized towns and cities across Syria and Iraq in a lightning advance. Most recently, the group took control of a major Syrian oil field on the Iraqi border. By seizing the El Omar oil field, it now controls most oil and gas fields in the oil-rich Syrian province of Dar Azar. Meanwhile, Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki is refusing to give up his quest for a third term in power, defying a chorus of critics demanding his resignation as the country faces threat from insurgents. In a vehement speech to the nation last night, al-Maliki vowed to continue the fight against all armed militant groups in the crisis-stricken country.
Police in Somalia said that a suicide car bomb has killed at least 4 people near Somalia's parliament. Reports say the bomb went off outside the parliament's main gate after guards shot at the border. The militant group lost control of Mogadishu in 2011 and has since carried out several bombings. Al-Shabaab, which is linked to Al-Qaeda, has also vowed to step up attacks during the holy month of Ramadan. Earlier this week, a prominent MP, Ahmed Mohammed Haid, was shot dead in the city in a drive-by attack claimed by the Al-Shabaab group. The Taliban has claimed responsibility for yesterday's attack on a parking lot filled with fuel tankers. A spokesman for Kabul's police chief said police were investigating the cause of the fire, which continues to burn, and that there are fears of casualties still ahead. Our reporter Dina Nasser has more on this story.
An assault by Taliban militants at a large parking lot on the outskirts of the Afghan capital Kabul last night left at least 400 fuel tankers incinerated. In a statement early this morning, the Taliban said the privately owned tankers were targeted because they supply foreign troops. Taliban fighters fired 4 RPG rockets at a logistics compound in the Pagam district of the capital. Other sources said that the insurgents also planted magnetic bombs to set the tankers on fire. Police are still investigating the case. The attackers were in uniforms of the Afghan security forces so as to confuse the drivers. The Taliban have attacked convoys bringing supplies for NATO-led forces in Afghanistan for years, but tankers have recently